Okay, good morning everyone, and welcome back. Today we move to speak about our first poem, our first English poem in the course. Last time we examined a Palestinian poem by a young Palestinian poet Tamim al-Barghouti about Jerusalem. We discussed issues related to the themes and the forms, and we kind of, in passing, mentioned some features of Palestinian poetry highlighted in the poem itself, and I gave you this as an assignment, so I'm hoping that you're working on this, again, on excavating the Palestinian features, Palestinian poetry features from the poem by Tamim al-Barghouti. Today we move to Renaissance poetry, and this is Sir Tomas Wyatt from the 16th century. From the 16th century. Sir Tomas Wyatt was born around 1502 and died around 1542, something like this. It means he was born, wrote poetry, did what he did, and lived in the first half of the 16th century. The poem we will talk about today is this one. It's called Whoso Lists to Hunt. Many poems in the past didn't have titles, so many people tend to give them either titles revolving around the theme itself, or sometimes people take the first line or the first part of the first line as the title of the poem. If you look at the poem, it's short. This is the first thing we notice. It's a short poem. If you look at the form or the shape, it's kind of regular, more or less. The lines are not exactly the same, but they are close. Sometimes the length of the line is significant, but what is more significant is the number of syllables. Yeah. My advice is usually when you look at the poem, a short poem like this, is to count the lines. Because if this is a 14-line poem, it means it's a sonnet. Thank you very much. It means it's a sonnet. Why is a sonnet special? Can you tell me? Why is it special to highlight the fact that a particular poem is a sonnet or is not a sonnet? Please.
It has a certain rhyme scheme, and it usually speaks about, because this is a Petrarchan sonnet, it usually speaks.
How did you know it's a Petrarchan sonnet?
The rhyme scheme.
Okay. Thank you.
And it has the two parts.
It has two parts.
Yes. Which is.
What's the most significant thing about the sonnet?
Italian Sonnet.
10 syllable and 5.
More important.
It is Italian Sonnet.
More important. What's the most significant thing about the sonnet?
It discusses a whole theme.
More.
The couplet.
Yeah? The number of lines, the 14 lines. That's number one. That's a given. Yeah, but let's go back and work on things in a regular manner. 14 lines. 13 lines? No, sorry, not a sonnet. 15 lines? Still not a sonnet. So when I say what is special about the sonnet, the first thing is that 14 lines. Sacred. It's a given. And then we talk about, because even when you talk about the rhyme scheme, there are varieties. The structures, there are varieties. The subject matter is basically what some of you mentioned, could be basically a love poem. But we'll see later on how this could also shift and change. When we talk about the sonnet, we talk about Italy. It originated in Italy. So Italy has given us not only good food, but also good poetry and good football. Hopefully you like football. Now, it was the sonnet became very famous, became trendy, very fashionable form of writing poetry sometime in the 14th century, I guess. And it was made very popular by two giants, two significant poets. Number one is Dante, and number two, probably more important, is called Petrarch. Look at the spelling. And then the name sounds strange because almost all Italian words end in vowels. I don't know why this is different. So Petrarch, Petrarch, Petrarch. That's why we usually hear about the Petrarchan Sonnet. It means the Italian sonnet. Now, in Petrarch, we have particular features for the sonnet. If you want to describe a sonnet as Petrarchan, it has to have certain things. We can organize these into 3 categories. Number 1, the theme. What it is about.
Yes.
Number 2, the form. The parts, like you said. And number 3, the rhyme scheme. We defined rhyme before as the ending sound or sounds of a line of verse. So what's the theme in a Petrarchan sonnet? Can you tell?
I think it's about, he was inspired by Petrarch, who wrote a sonnet 190 that it was about a woman, Laura.
So the sonnet, it's about, like, what is he saying? Like, women are good, women are bad, women are, what exactly going on?
The main theme in the Petrarch one is love.
In the Petrarchan sonnet is love. It's a love. That's why many people insist on defining the sonnet as a 14-line love poem. Because it was basically kind of invented to express this love relationship, to chase women, to come after them, to hunt them down. We'll see this. So it's a love poem. But even this poem, this kind of love theme, is also special. There's something different. We find it in other poems. But here, Petrarch usually represents the woman as unattainable, cruel and heartless. She's cruel and heartless. Sometimes cannot be reached, cannot be attained. And usually the lover is presented as an abject man, a man usually doing his best, but failing, not because he's a loser, but because of the woman, the heartless woman. And some people might find this very interesting in the sense that when you usually express love and like strong emotions like love, they usually overflow. Remember, we spoke about overflowing. And putting this in this very tight shape, like restricting us to 14 lines, that could be limiting sometimes. If 14 lines can limit us, wait until you see what other rules there should be, what other features there should be. Now, the Italian sonnet or the Petrarchan sonnet has a particular form. It's divided into, thank you very much, an octave and a sestet. Easy. Octave means 8, like octopus, you know? Octopus. 8. 8 lines. Sestet?
6.
Okay, thank you. 6 lines. Now, in the first part, what happens in the first part, in the opening 8 lines? Please. Okay, so there is the introduction of the problem, the issue, the crisis, the complications, the issue he's discussing, what exactly going on. Because many people, like Shakespeare wrote, we'll see this next class, 154 sonnets, give or take. Same with Petrarch. I'm not sure how many, but he wrote over 200 sonnets. So if this is a love poem, and you saying something about your relationship with a woman, why are you saying it in 200 different ways? Yeah? It's never enough, I don't know. But in the first 8 lines, the poet exposes us to what's going on, how he feels. What's going on? Usually something is wrong. He's down. He's not feeling good. He's not optimistic about winning the woman. The woman is doing something that doesn't help him win her heart. And naturally, in the Sestet, we have the solution, the kind of answer, the resolution, the closure, hopefully sometimes, or the justification. Why what happened in the first stanza, the first part, happened. Okay, so look at this. We said 14 lines, and some might say, wow, that's very limiting, very strict and rigid. And then we say, also, wait a minute, the first 8 lines, the octave form one part, one particular part. It discusses this particular issue. And then the poet kind of twists, moves, shifts to the resolution, usually some kind of a closure or a justification sometimes, in 6 lines. Now, even more limiting is the rhyme scheme, the ending sounds. We'll see this in a bit of the poem. How it ends. And we discussed this before. We mentioned it very quickly in Ali Abu Namal's poem because the 5 lines ended in I sound. We said it ended with I. In English, the rhyme in English follows, the sounds follow the alphabet. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, etc., etc. Because Arabic is a very flexible language, you could read a poem of 2,000 lines ending in the same sound. Hundreds of lines could end. Arabic language is said to have 12 million words. That's a lot. And the second place, in the second place comes English with close to 500,000. Notice the gap? It's more than 11 million words. That's why Arabic is a very flexible language. English comes second, very flexible, but doesn't sometimes come close. So usually the first sound, let's work on this before we talk about the rhyme scheme. The first sound, whatever it is, whether the poem ends in 0, pizza, salad, morning, class, teacher, whatever, the sound or the sounds, because sometimes it's not the last sound, the last 2 sounds. We give it A. Where did the A come from? The alphabet, the first letter from the alphabet. Should know this because you need to do it in your exams. Now, we look at the second line, the ending of the second line. If it repeats the same sound or sounds as the first line, another A. No, we go back to the alphabet.
The next one.
The next one is B. That's more, so, that's another B. Behind, hind, A. And then we have mind, wind. Okay, we'll see this in a bit. Another A, for, therefore, B, B. Look at this. If you look at this word and compare it with this or this or this, they look similar. The last 3 letters, I in D, I in D, I in D, they are the same. But it's not the letters we care about. It's the sounds. It's the sounds. So, hind or eind in Old Middle English. And then we have here behind. And then mind. But this one, this is noun. By the way, the verb is wind when something, you know. But this is the noun wind. Wind. It looks the same, but it sounds different. We call this an imperfect rhyme, or sometimes I rhyme. I rhyme. You look at it, it sounds the same. You read it, it's not the same. It's not the same. Now, there is an issue here. Some people might give this like some kind of poetic license, you know, يحق للشاعر ما لا يحق لغيره, and would say something like, probably the poet originally pronounced it wine just to make it look more musical, or perhaps in the past, 500 years ago, it was pronounced wine. But now we don't say wine, so we say wind. In this case, we'll give it an imperfect rhyme. And I usually use the small letter, so that's why I like you to use the capital. This is my thing. Capital, 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 and then to indicate an imperfect rhyme, go for small. And we will always ask the question, why is there an imperfect rhyme? Because there's a reason behind everything in a poem. Everything counts. Okay, so basically this is the first part. This is the octave, the 8 lines, the opening. And they kind of mirror each other. Yeah? A, B, B, A, B, B. It's very, very musical. Although the sound A, B, B, A, B, B, A is not what we hear. We hear the sound hind, more, hind, mind, for, therefore, and wind. And then this is different, a different sound. Doubt. Doubt. We go to the alphabet. What's after B? C. Doubt. Vain. Plain. D. D. About. Look at this. This is a silent letter. That's why we care about the sounds. And then about is yet another C. There's one line missing. Okay? So the last line here, C, D, D, C, am. You know am? We say am. For Caesars, I am. Did we get the last line? Yep. So the last line, the last 2 lines, am is, and then that's tame. Tame. I think it's another imperfect rhyme scheme. So let's go back again because we have a smaller screen now. We have hind, A, B, B, A, B, B, imperfect, C, D, D, C, E, E. 1 imperfect rhyme, 2 imperfect rhymes. Because this is am, this is the sounds, the phonemic transcription. But tame is, same with this one. This is hind, for example, hind. But mind is, wind is just E, wind. This is how you get the rhyme scheme from a poem, from a stanza. Usually, if we move to a new stanza in the poem, we begin again. We go back to the A. But the sonnet is written in 1 block, so we just continue counting. Okay, so the Petrarchan sonnet has a special rhyme scheme. Do you know it? What it is? What is it? Please. Okay, so the rhyme scheme is, where should I write it? So the rhyme scheme for the Petrarchan sonnet is A, B, B, A, B, B, Say again. Okay, A, B, B, A. Yet again, A, B, B, A. Yes or no? I'm talking about the Petrarchan Sonnet. The Petrarchan Sonnet rhymes ABBA, ABBA. What about the Sestet? Okay, so we could go for CDE, CDE, or CDCDCD. This is Petrarch. Listen, the Italian sonnet itself has 11 syllables in every line. Look at how strict and rigid this is. It's highly calculated. It's tightly structured. The sounds, the rhymes, the lines, even the syllables. And this is what makes the sonnet different. It's not only the theme. It's not only sometimes the number of lines. And that's why many people describe it as a rigid form of poetry. And these rules, by the way, make the sonnet a difficult kind of poem to write. Because you're surrounded by, you know, rules from all. It's not just, okay, I want to write a 14-line poem. Wait a minute. The number of syllables, the number of the structure, the rhyme scheme, the form, etc. Now, in the Renaissance, whether in Italy or in England, it became a fashion. The sonnet became a fashionable trend. And that's why almost all major poets wrote sonnets. It's like now when one of your friends doesn't have an account on Twitter or Instagram. It's like, what? And it was a show off. I know people who start all their conversations by like, I have 10K on Twitter. I have 15K on Instagram. I think in the past was like, I wrote sonnets. You know, I wrote a sonnet last. In my sonnet last time, I did this and that. In my sonnet to Laura, this Petrarch, he was writing to Laura, sometimes pronounced as Laura, the Italian musical way. So this sonnet kind of migrated to England, or was brought to England, depending on how you like to look at things. If you think that the sonnet is like an organism, a human being, did it migrate, or was it, you know, like brought, imported? Is it a product? Yeah. I like to use the word migrating, how it migrated from one place to another. Now, Sir Tomas Wyatt, the guy who wrote this poem, and Henry Howard, they brought it to England. And England always had this problem with Europe, because all the good things originated in Europe, in the continent, not in England itself. Even football that the English claim to have invented, they have won the World Cup only once, and they are always beaten up. So this inferiority complex, let me say, is, and again, probably some people connect this to Brexit nowadays. It's like the English want to be different. They wanted to write things their own way, but eventually they end up borrowing the sonnet, borrowing even the novel, even classical drama. Everything is not originally British. Not many things are originally British, maybe except imperialism and colonialism and evil and bad food. So what I'm saying here is that when Sir Tomas Wyatt brought this small, beautiful baby poem to England, he adopted it. I'm sorry for the extended metaphors. It sounds stupid now. Okay? And he tried to make it a little bit English. You know, when somebody copies your homework, you say just copy it so it doesn't sound you're plagiarizing. So he changed a little bit about it. He introduced something at the end. The couplet. The two rhyming lines. So today we know we have the octave, 8 lines, the sestet, 6 lines, and also the couplet. 2 rhyming lines. This is necessary. It's necessary to say 2 rhyming lines. Not all couples of lines are couplets. They should rhyme. And some people insist that they should be about 1 idea, sometimes one image. The question is this poem by Sir Tomas Wyatt a Petrarchan sonnet or not? Has he changed anything? What did he change and where? Somebody please read. Read the poem, please.
Whoso lest to hunt, I know where is an hind, but as far from me, alas, I may no more. The vain travel hath wearied me so sore. I am of them that farthest cometh behind, yet may I by no means my wearied mind draw from the deer, but as she fleeth afore, fainting I follow. I leave off, therefore, since in a net I seek to hold the wind. Who list her hunt, I put him out of doubt, as well as I may spend his time in vain, and graven with diamonds in letters plain. There is written, her fair neck round about, nolly made tanger, for Caesar's I am, and wild for to hold, though I seem tame.
Okay, good reading. One more, please. Can you speak up?
Whoso list to hunt, I know where there is an hind.
Where is an hind?
But as for me, alas, I may no more. The vain travail hath wearied me so sore. I am of them that farthest cometh behind. Yet may I be no means my wearied mind draw from the deer, but as she fleeth afore, fainting I follow. I leave off therefore, since in a net I seek to hold the wind. Who list her hunt, I put him out of doubt, as well as I may spend his time in vain, graven with diamonds in letters plain. There is written her fair neck round about, nor me thunder, for Caesar's I am, and wild for to hold, though I seem tame.
Okay, one more, please, finally.
Whoso list to hunt, I know where is an hind, but as for me, alas, I may no more. The vain travail hath wearied me so sore, I am of them that farthest cometh behind. Yet may I by no means my wearied mind draw from the deer, but as she fleeth afore, fainting I follow. I leave off therefore, since in a net I seek to hold the wind. Who list her hunt, I put him out of doubt, as well as I may spend his time in vain. Engraven with diamonds in letters plain, there is written, her fair neck round about, nolly me tanger, for Caesar's I am, and wild for to hold, though I seem tame.
Okay, nice readings, thank you very much. Now, before we comment on the poem, there are many things to notice. This is, by the way, a modernized version of the original text. I tried to use words that correspond with today's English. But still, there are words like cometh, but it's two syllables actually, like Rahaf said, cometh. Even fleeth, fleeth. This is and hath, hath. This is hath, this is comes, this is flees. Middle English, they use th for he, she, it. That was replaced long time ago by is. Today we say she has, she goes, she flees, she runs. In the past it was fleeth, comes, hath. Okay? The th. The other thing to notice is the Latin here in the last two lines. Nolly, me. Actually, there are many readings for this, but many dictionary online say nolly me tangere, making it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 syllables. Nolly me tangere. Although I love the nolly me tangere, like the Italian way of saying it. Anything else to notice? Language-wise. So that's it. This is Old Middle English, hath, cometh, and fleeth. Now, what is this about? What is the poet saying? Can you guess? Look at the pronouns, the people, the characters in the poem. What does, and probably you could have noticed this, we don't say an honest nowadays, yeah? An honest. But today we say hind. Hind, it means a deer, yeah? Gazelle. So basically, probably in the past, the H could have been silent. Like it's silent in honor, in our, you know, and honest, etc. On YouTube, many people say an hind. It reads well, but I guess it should be an hind.
It's heavy to pronounce.
But you can make it not heavy, an hind. But I would go for an hind.
I will pronounce it as hind. Why shall I use an? And I shall use an hind.
That's why. That's why. Okay. So this is basically why we have the an for the vowel that follows. The H is not a vowel sound. And there is a big story about the H and why is the H silent in our and honest and honor? Why? And why it's not silent somewhere else? And by the way, it's sometimes you will read something like and this is strange because we say history, historic, and historical. Both are correct. You could say an or a. And I know some people who just want to show off that they have the depth of the language, so they say they write an historical. And it's like, wait a minute, there's a typo here. No, both are okay. But if you say an, it should be an historical. A historical. The same with hysterical and hysterical or so. Anyway, so this is probably the H sound must have been a heavy sound to pronounce. And I know people, I met an American woman who couldn't say Ahmed. Even Ahmed, like the ha. It's not like the ha we have in Arabic. Anyway, so what's going on in the poem? What is it about? What is the poet talking about, please?
I think it's about the writer who's trying to hunt a deer, but someone else tries to hunt it, so he gives him a chance, but even he hunts for a long time, it will be useless.
Okay, so it's about hunting.
No, it has a deeper meaning.
Okay, so he doesn't directly say a woman, although he uses the pronouns her and she to personify the deer here, the hind. So is this about hunting, or is this about hunting women, please? Okay, so the extended metaphor here is that falling in love is like hunting. Sometimes you win, sometimes you hunt what you're after, sometimes you go back home empty-handed. More.
The story said that the serpent swiped this because he followed.
Okay, I know where you're going. Let's not go outside the text for now. What is the text telling us? This is what I care about. The history, listen, the background of the poem might be interesting. It could help us, further understand aspects of the poem. But let's assume that this is what we have. Please.
In the first line, he begins with an announcement. If you want to hunt, I know the place. He went to tell us the place to hunt.
So is it about hunting?
No.
That's my question. What is it about? Please.
The poet is using a hunting metaphor to describe a suitor who is trying to win the affection of a woman. And here again we have the lover who is doing his best, but the woman is cruel and he just can't get her.
Mm-hmm.
So the woman is the deer, and he tried to hunt her over and over, but she just keeps escaping, and he keeps falling.
This is, by the way, this is a poem from the perspective of a man. He's saying she keeps running away. He's not saying I'm a loser. I am. Although sometimes he indicates that he doesn't follow. He leaves off. He gives up. But he doesn't say because I'm a loser, or I'm a good guy, it's because she's wild. She's wild. So can you describe this as a love poem?
It talks about unattainable love, and I do believe this. And he describes the woman as, okay, a deer, and he describes her as wild, though tame. So this means that there is some kind of, yes, I want to maybe like come to you or something, but still she's restricted by something that the poet himself does not know.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say something that maybe this metaphor could be extended even more to say that this woman or this deer hind can be actually like the poem itself.
How's that?
In general.
Let's go back to this probably at the end of the class. But the point is here, can you describe this as a love poem? We don't have much information, let's say. We only know that this is a sonnet written by Sir Tomas Wyatt, an Englishman, in the first half of the 16th century, the Renaissance period before Shakespeare. You said here this is unattainable love, love that can't be.
It's very clear.
Please.
I think it is just giving justifications for, because we don't listen to the 2 points of view of the woman and the man. We just listen to him, and he is giving justifications for giving up his love. And
Okay.
we didn't listen,
But
we don't listen to them.
he shows his love to her somewhere in the poem. Does he show somewhere? He describes her as beautiful, you know, the fair neck. She's a deer. She's not grub. She's not a crow, a raven, or I don't know, a wild cat, or she's a deer. She's a, yeah.
I think that it is more like searching for love, not expressing love.
So he is searching for the right suitor, the right partner, possibly. Okay?
He expressed his love by saying, "Yet may I by no means my wearied mind," that he can't stop thinking about her.
But his mind is wearied. He's tired. He's giving up. And also he is saying, "Whoso lists to hunt, I know where is an hind. Whoever wants to hunt, I can tell you where you can find a deer. So you can hunt here." That's giving up. That's horrible, by the way. In the age of Me Too, this is mad and sad. Yeah? Because clearly, we'll talk about this in a bit. The woman seems to be saying no, rejecting him, turning him down. But this is a man who is not only insisting on having her, pushing further, after having his advances rejected. This is a man who is telling other men to hunt this woman, to go after her. Ah, horrible, horrible. You know, no is no, right? Please?
I'm not really seeing it as about love. I see it as him following his lusts. At the end, he converted the one he pretends to be loving to an animal, whether it was a deer, whether it was...
Don't we do this all the time? Don't we compare people we love to certain animals? Does it mean they are animals or we hate them?
I don't see that he converted to an animal as a sign of love. I guess...
Because when you put it this way, he compares her to an animal. Wow, don't do this. But a deer is kind of an acceptable image.
Yeah, as you said, like, he's not comparing her to a dog. He's comparing her to a
Even dogs sometimes in certain situations can be positive. Yeah. More? More? Can we take this, simply speaking, can we take this under, like, does it go under the umbrella of a love poem?
Yes.
If you want to categorize it. I think, yeah. Maybe it's not reciprocated, you know? There's no loving back. So the theme here is, sorry?
Unrequited love, I think. Unrequited love.
Okay, so we have here the theme,
She doesn't love him back.
probably courtly love. What about the form? Or before the form, maybe you can talk about the rhyme scheme. Quickly. The rhyme scheme is here. So it is A, B, B, A, B, B, A. That's Petrarch. And then C, D, D, C, E, E. Okay, if you want to insist on the imperfect rhyme, it could go like this.
Yeah.
So, is the rhyme scheme a Petrarchan rhyme scheme?
Similar. No one of them.
Usually, in Petrarch, we don't, I think very few Petrarchan sonnets have the rhyming couplet at the end. So it's not something characteristic of Petrarch. The rhyming couplet at the end is an English thing. Some English poets introduced it, but it was made so popular by Shakespeare. We'll see next class. Okay? So while the octave might sound Petrarchan, the sestet is not at least 100% Petrarchan. So how is this divided? It depends. I could go for octave, quatrain, couplet. Like you could count it this way. Like we have 8 lines, 4 lines, 2 lines. This is the octave. This is the quatrain. This is a new word, maybe, to some of you. Quatrain from quarter means 4 lines. So we have couplet, quatrain, sestet, and octave. And then the couplet, which makes it different from Petrarch. Or you just could go simply for 8 lines, 6 lines ending in a couplet. But the rhyme scheme is a little bit different from Petrarch, especially that we have a couplet here. So the theme, almost the same. The rhyme scheme, almost the same. The theme is probably typically Petrarchan because this is a lover who's giving up. We pity him. Yeah, haram. She's cruel. She's heartless. But he is, you know, he's doing his best. Look at him. He's writing sonnets. But because of her cruelty, he's giving up. So probably this is pure Petrarchan's theme. The rhyme scheme is not 100% Petrarchan, which means the form or the structure of the sonnet is also not 100% Petrarchan. But again, it depends on how you want to divide it. I leave this to you. If you want to divide it into 8, 4, 2, I'll accept that. If you want to divide it into 8, 6, I'll also take that. But don't forget that we have here a rhyming couplet, which is an English thing. So if you want to answer the question whether this is a Petrarchan sonnet or not, many people would easily say yes. And many people will say yes with just a little kind of change. But it's not 100% Petrarchan. And this is the tiny little thing the English poets wanted to introduce to the sonnet. We'll see what Shakespeare does to the sonnet later on. Okay? Something before we move?
Yes.
Please.
I would say that we can call it a theme as love because I think even any words like hunt or deer, still this is a love story. And I think this is what's usually happen in a love story. There's that kind of maybe pride between lovers that even there is mutual love, even the woman loves the man, she will pretend that she didn't care, like as a kind of discrimination for herself, that she's hard to get, that makes the man want her more and go over it. So we call this hunt. But
That's a very interesting question. Yeah. Is the woman pretending to say no because, and this is horrible by the way, but also is the man saying, I'm giving up just to make her pity him and have him back? It's like, oh no, I'm just kidding or something. This is, I leave this for you. But let's not again accuse every woman of just pretending deep in her heart that she wants to say yes, but she's saying no, because this is a horrible idea. Please.
Actually, I find it interesting. Yes, we can classify it under the love category, but at the same time, I don't think he's really in love. Because usually the term, in English, there's a term called husband hunting. I never heard about wife hunting. It's you know,
there's always wife hunting.
It's like, no, but usually the term they use is husband hunting for
also wife hunting. What's wrong?
Women, for women who just want to get any husband, especially if he was a rich husband, like back then in their age.
Okay.
So
usually hunt it because we either want it, need it to survive, or in their case, they used to hunt for pleasure, as a sport.
To show off because they are rich people.
So I don't think he's really in love with her. She's just a beautiful
trophy,
woman,
you know?
and
She's a trophy.
He wants her, that's all.
Okay, interesting. Although in like traditional societies like ours in the Middle East here, there's always wife hunting.
Yes, but
okay,
I'm talking about their
so if you look at the text, there's a huge difference between the woman and the man. There's a huge difference in the representation. It's probably not clear, but we can comment on this. How many people are there in the text? Please. Who are they? Let's say poet. Be more specific. The hind. Who's the hind? The deer. The woman.
And Caesar, the king.
Very good. Caesar. Where would you put Caesar? Here or here?
Under woman.
Caesar is here. Also, who else is there? Thank you very much. The other hunters, the other men. There's also the speaker. Let's not always mix between the speaker and the poet. The poet is the man whose name appears next to the poem, but the speaker is the persona there. It could be fictional sometimes. Sometimes they are the same. Sometimes they are not. The speaker in the text. So this is a poem dominated by men. And the woman, somebody said here, is talked about. And she is objectified. She's an object of desire. People want her. Not because of something in her mind or heart, just because she's beautiful, fair. She's fair. She's beautiful. Meaning, the woman's voice is weak or not there. Is the woman, okay, let me ask this in other words. Is the representation of the woman positive or negative? Do you like the way the woman is introduced to us or not? Okay, why? Who says, I heard somebody say positive. So it doesn't have to be 100% positive, 100% negative. Is it both? Where can you see good representation of the woman? Where can you see good representation? How does this give a good image about the woman or women in general in that age? Quickly. Please.
I think it is a negative representation.
My question. Where do you see a positive representation of the woman or women in the poem? We'll come to the negative later on. So fair neck. If you describe a woman as beautiful, that's something good. The physical appearance. Is it more important than other things? Where is the woman positively depicted in the poem? Please.
I think the very act of escaping from the hunter is significant.
Remember we said that women are weak. You know, they're described like this all the time, that men are strong and intellectual and, you know, tough, but women are not. That's sentimental, the stupid distinction. But here the woman is resisting the man's advances. She's saying no. And she's insisting on saying no. She's rejecting him. And this very act is significant. It shows how strong and independent this woman is. Nice. What else? What else? What other positive things can you find? Please. What other positive things? I'm coming to the negative things. I know what you want to talk about. But what other positive things can you see in the poem about the woman? Do you want to be this woman? Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. The maybe here means because there's something good that might make you identify with her. Please.
Maybe the last line also. Yeah.
Very good.
It can be for anyone. Even
Okay, so why do you think the last two lines, the couplet?
And when you say, and wife for to hold.
Okay, what does that indicate?
Indicate that she's free.
Nice.
So even the king himself can count on her.
Why? No. How you're contradicting yourself here, because the very couplet says, For Caesar's I am, meaning I belong to Caesar. The apostrophe S here is significant.
Also, he said, I'm born for to hold, now I seem.
Though, so she's saying, I seem tame, like all women might do, but I am wild, uncontrollable. I can't be controlled by men. That's also a declaration of resistance from the woman's part.
Wild for to hold is like she's hard to get,
catch.
And no one can have her. So she's unique.
Okay, that's nice. Other positive things?
Yes. I like the way that the decision in this relationship maybe, or in this love story, it's related to the woman. That she's, if she wants to be in this, she will say yes or...
She is the center of this relationship.
She's the center, and the decision is with her. I like this.
Okay, nice. Who thinks this is negative? What don't you like in this poem, representation of the woman, how she is depicted? Please.
I feel like the voice of the woman is not here. Like she didn't have her ideas. She didn't explain what she thinks about this relationship. She is just escaping without telling anything.
Okay, but here, Amina is suggesting that the very act of running away, rejecting and saying no is an act of resistance at that time. But you're saying that she should at least confront this man as the lover, the hunter, pretending, like saying go away directly. But isn't running, مش بيقولوا إيش الشراد تلتين المراجل, like in a way, like running away is also an act of resistance here. Please. Okay, you're saying as an object. Where in the poem does it show that she's an object?
He loves her appearance.
Where is that? Very good. Where is that?
It's on the first line.
Where is her appearance in the first line?
I know where.
Okay, when he used the hind to say this woman is like a hind, like a beautiful deer. But also she's fair. Fair means beautiful. And look at how he spoke about himself. Mine. The man is intellectual. But the woman is beautiful, the appearance.
The woman is
And wild also. She's what? She is unattainable, cruel, heartless. Okay? Now, I'm not sure if some of you noticed here, the couplet is not what the woman says. I know some people take the couplet as evidence that the woman is strong, independent. But no. Here it doesn't say the woman says, the woman replies. So I agree, the woman is silent or silenced. Huge difference. Here it is written, passive voice, indicating how inactive, how passive she is. She doesn't even talk. She's not allowed to talk to people. There is something written around her neck, possibly written by Caesar or the king. You know, you'll read about King Henry VIII and Pauline, what's her name, and the history about this, which might be interesting to understanding the text, but this is enough. So for Caesar's I am, and even this, I belong to Caesar. I am the property. Yes, she's treated as property, as an object of admiration. Even when the man is, you know, fed up, he says, hey, anyone, want a woman? I know where you can find one. And he's insisting on this. Who list her hand? I put him out of doubt, as well as I may spend his time in vain. But it's going to be in vain because she's wild, she's cruel, she's heartless, she's senseless also. She doesn't have a heart. She doesn't love back. She doesn't care. And this is negative. So women generally are represented as sentimental and emotional, but when it comes to love, they don't love back. And this is, again, very interesting because, again, this is the frame that a man is putting on a woman. The man wants the woman to behave in this particular way, wants to control the woman, wants her to behave in the way he likes, whenever he wants, wherever he wants. So, but again, I think some of you might like to say that the representation of the woman is a lot better than many representations of women in other poems at that time.
At
This is a little bit, this is a step forward. This is a step forward. This is not a woman submitting to the wills and wishes of the advances of man. Okay? Brief.
What's written in her neck for Caesar's I am? I think maybe she actually loves her husband Caesar, and this speaker is just a third person in this relationship. Since he's talking to other hunters to come and hunt this.
But sadly, we don't hear her say this.
No.
We don't hear her see this. She doesn't talk. She doesn't speak. She's silent.
Well, maybe that's the idea. Her way of resistance is by remaining silent, and she's silent because she's forced to be silent.
Probably.
Because she belongs
Probably
to
a sign of rejecting.
She chooses to be silent.
She doesn't say, "I love Caesar. I am in love with Caesar. I am owned by Caesar." To be more specific. I like this. Thank you very much. She's controlled from the neck. She's a slave. She's enslaved here. Now, can we trace the features of that age in the poem? Basically, we do. And this is what we will be doing. We'll try to understand the age from the poem, not vice versa. So please don't read the history of the poem and the poet and his mom and his mother-in-law, what he liked, what he didn't like. Let's see what the poem tells us. So it tells us that the sonnet here was a fashionable trend. And it tells us that women were presented in a particular way. Mainly negative, as objects of desire, to be hunted. Voiceless, heartless, senseless, even mindless. And the man is more superior to the woman. More intellectual. He writes, he is dominant. Men dominate. They hunt, they chase, they write.
Control.
Sorry?
Control.
They control. Women are the object. They are the doers here. There's something I love, something else I love about the poem. Basically this line. You want to talk about this line? Look at what's going on. Draw from the deer, but as she fleeth afore, fainting I follow. I leave off therefore. Please.
There's two things. The alliteration of the first sound.
Thank you very much. Look at this. Fainting. Again, look at this man panting, running for a while, and then he's giving up, and he's like, "Whoso less to hunt, I know where's the 9." This panting is mirrored in the repetition of the fa sound and other friction sounds. This is called alliteration. It doesn't only create music, it also creates, mirrors what's going on. What else?
And also how he put full stop in the
What's this?
It's like he is changing his
A caesura. There is a break. So the full stop, what does it say?
He is changing his direction, and he is
Taking a break, stopping.
He doesn't
Yeah.
want to.
In Old English, there was a space in the middle of the line like classical Arabic poetry. It's called a caesura, the break, the gap. But later on, this changed into like punctuation marks, the full stop, the comma. Here, there is a physical caesura in the very middle of the line. By the way, if you count the syllables, you'll find most lines, many lines, I think half of them have like 11 syllables, closer to Petrarch than English. We'll see in Shakespeare, they are almost all 10 lines. So, fainting I follow, there's a contradiction here. The man is lying. He hasn't done his best. He says, fainting I follow, and he stops. He doesn't follow. He stops following. He's a quitter. I leave off, therefore. And then I leave off, therefore. Since, look at this beautiful image here. Since, in the original text, there's some other ugly word. Since, in a net, I seek to hold the wind. It sounds like a cliche today, but perhaps in the past, yeah.
He's saying that I'm going to hunt, but it's for nothing. Just like hunting a wind in a nest.
Okay. Hunting this woman is as impossible as hunting wind, holding the wind in your in the palm of your hand.
And also the use of the vein twice. So it shows that he is like, know that this hunt is useless.
It's useless.
Yes.
Oh, it's futile. The vain travail, in vain. Also, the word vain means something else, proud. One of them is arrogant, is proud. Okay, we'll discuss other things related to the poem in this list of questions. Look at this list, please. We kind of answered and addressed some of them. How does the poem reflect its age? What can you say about the age from reading the poem? How does the poem create a particular image of women? Is it positive? Where is it positive? Where is it negative? What type of sonnet is this? What is the rhyme scheme of the poem? The sonnet, again, like we said, it's more or less Petrarchan, not 100%. He introduced some change. Number 5, significant point. Whose voice is dominating? Who's dominant in the voice? Who do we hear? Who is speaking to us? Is the woman speaking? Does she have a voice? She's silent. Even when she talks, it's through some kind of mediation. Now, number 6, how does the form of the sonnet and the content of the sonnet relate to the content of the sonnet? Why did the poet choose the sonnet form? Why doesn't he choose some other form? Please.
I think he used more likely to be Petrarchan sonnet. So Petrarch, in his sonnets, used to talk about love and about the cruel woman. So he used this form to describe the content of it. So when you look at it, you can understand that.
Okay.
It's about love.
More.
Okay, well, I'm going to comment on his use for a sonnet itself, maybe because the sonnet has some rules, and let's say, he's striving to control something. So this is what I meant by saying, like, talking about the poem, not a lover specifically. He's trying to control this poem by following some rules. And here I believe that it's very significant that he used 2 imperfect rhymes. The first is when he said that, since in a net I seek to hold the wind. So we can see that, like, as he's trying to hunt his deer or his lover, he cannot. So it's like the same
Okay.
happens.
So again, we go back to what we started with. The sonnet is rigid. The sonnet is highly calculated. The sonnet is tightly structured. Every sound, every syllable counts. Is therefore a purpose. On the other hand, we have a chaotic world. Men running after women, a man not having his woman sort of, it's a mess, yeah? It's chaotic. So could basically be the man is trying to control life within the walls, so to speak, of the sonnet, trying to stick it in this tiny little space so he can organize, control, structure what can't be structured and what can't be controlled in real life. In other words, he sounds to be trying to control the uncontrollable. We'll talk about this in more detail when we talk about Shakespeare. But also the sonnet was a fashion. Again, it's like, again, buying a modern car. Like, again, I said, having like hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of followers on social media. It's something people use to do to brag about, to show off. It's like, you know, I have this. And yes, thank you for hinting to the imperfect rhymes, the imperfection of probably his attempts. He falls short. He can't have hair. Basically, creating some kind of tension. Number 7. I'll give you a moment, some of you, but let's read question number 7, question number 8. Number 7. Could you please write your own poem, being the woman replying some sort of parody? Some of your classmates in the other group wrote really fascinating poems. Doesn't have to be a sonnet, but if you can, that would be amazing. It would be a bonus. So reply to to Sir Tomas Wyatt, be the deer, be this woman, the hunted. And the question for this poem that I want you to reflect on, this is the assignment. You need to do 7 out of 25 poems. I want you to compare the use of the deer image in this poem and in another Arabic poem. See how different poets, different cultures use the deer to talk about women. Are they similar? Are they dissimilar? Where do they meet? Where don't they meet? I think this is a very interesting thing to do. This question will be group work. So question number 1, if you did Tamim's poem reflection, it's individual. It will close in 2 days, by the way. This one will be done. I'll give you details online, probably groups of 2s, 3s, or even 4s. I'll stop here, but somebody wanted to say something. Very short.
I wanted to comment on the imperfect rhyme on the last
Quickly.
I would say that it might relate to the paradox in this part, because he's saying that yes and not, like she cannot be tamed, but at the same time she is actually tamed by having this around her neck.
Okay.
So
Finally.
Maybe he's writing this poem because he's tired of hunting her, and this poem would bring her.
It's an attempt to win her back. The very sonnet itself is, again, an expression of admiration and love. That's a good point. We'll stop here, ladies. Thank you very much. Next class, we prepare Shakespeare's Sonnet 18. Thank you, and see you later.